So each month we want to share with you how we're doing. We shared with you in January, we had a great January. In February and March, we're really down. Then April and May were great again, and then June was down. So where we are year to date is that we are down $9,000. Now, the previous 2 years, we finished the year with a surplus, right? But we just want to make sure that everybody's aware of where we are. We're going to ask that you hold us in prayer during this time, that we, if you don't let me go on vacation, we do better. But we are absolutely going to finish solidly in the black like we do every year. But we just want you to know how we're doing, and so that you can hold us in prayer. Also, at the board meeting last month, the board voted that we haven't been sharing where, as a ministry, we're tithing. So as a ministry, we tithe, there we go. So we tithe both to the Greater Unity Movement and we tithe within our community. So the Greater Unity Movement, we tithe the Unity Worldwide Ministry, we tithe to the Southwest region, and we tithe to Silent Unity. Locally, we tithe to 9 different organizations each month. So we tithe to the Habitat for Humanity, Coalition for Compassion and Justice, Prescott Area Shelter Services, Stepping Stone Agency, Hungry Kid Project, People Who Care, Arizona Children's Association, Yavapai Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and Yavapai Casa for Kids. So last month our total tithes were $2,100 and change. And so I just want you to know that as a ministry, we practice tithing. So the first tenth of all that we receive go to where we're spiritually fed. So I just want you to know that. If you have any questions about our finances, ask me and ask a board member. If you want to know why we picked those organizations, the board reviewed that list again last month, and we're going to finish the year tithing to those organizations. All right? So if you have questions, let me know. All right. I want you to take a deep breath, and I want you to feel the presence of God that's within you and all around you. That today we awaken to all that God is. That no matter what's going on in your life, no matter what the need, no matter what the situation, God is there. God is that infinite presence that flows within you. That we are one with the one. We are one with the infinite presence and power of God. So take another deep breath and feel all that God is within you. That you are not separate from your Creator, but you are the living expression of all that God is. And today our prayer is, let there be light. Let there be light in every aspect of our life. Let there be light in our work, in our homes, in our families, in our nation, in our finances, in our health. Let there be light. Let there be light. That we have the power to call forth the light. We have the power to see the glory of God all around us, to bring light into our path, to illumine our way, to lift and to transform every situation in our life. That each and every one of us is the living expression of the divine. Let there be light. Let there be light. There's a challenge in your life today. There's a need, if there's a problem. Today we affirm, let there be light. Let there be light. Let there be light. And now in the time of silence, I invite you to call forth the light of God within you, to speak into that light and see every area of your life being transformed by the power of the light. Thank you, God, for the light that illumines our way, for the light that transforms every situation and calls it higher, for the ability to see the darkness and know that as we call forth the light, we lift it to a higher level. Let there be light. And there was light. And so it is. Amen.
Between every sunrise and sunset, we can live our lives so we have no regret. We can be right or be kind. We can lift each other up and let our big light shine. So lay it down, brother, lay it down. Lay down pride and prejudice so only love can be found. Lay it down, brother, lay it down. What you put into the universe will come back around. Hey, hey, yeah. I pray to be tongue-tied in a battle of words. Let my heart be the sound that must be heard. If I speak love, there's no room for hate. If I speak of my blessings, there's no room for debate. Oh, lay it down, brother, lay it down. Lay down pride and prejudice so only love can be found. Lay it down, brother, lay it down. What you put into the universe will come back around. So here we are, another day, another chance for change. If only we could see God in us, then His love would not feel strange. Oh, so lay it down, brother, lay it down. Lay down pride and prejudice so only love can be found. Lay it down, brother, lay it down. What you put into the universe will come back around. Oh, lay it down, brother, lay it down. Lay down pride and prejudice so only love can be found. Lay it down, brother, lay it down. What you put into the universe will come back around. Hey, yeah.
fabulous. Now, who wrote that song? Who wrote that song? Adorable, fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. That is so good. This morning I started a new series. It's going to be at least 5 weeks, and maybe 6. I'm still debating with God. and for the next 5 weeks, or 6, we're going to talk about prayer. And prayer for many of us is kind of a good idea. But it's not always an idea that gets a lot of crowd support. Right? There's like, it seems to be broken down into 3 groups, right? You have people over here, and they don't believe in prayer. So, of course, they're not going to pray because they don't believe in prayer, right? And sometimes they're very smart, very intellectual, very well educated, and they just don't believe that there's anything beyond themselves, and so they don't believe in prayer, right? There's another group here that believes in prayer. They just don't usually use it very often, right? This group is they'll pray, but it's just before their car hits the wall, right? Or when a friend or a family member is going through a difficult time, they'll pray, but it tends to be crisis-based praying. Have you all been there in that crisis? And it's like, I'm going down, this is my last hope, so what the heck, I'll throw a line to God and see what happens, right? And that's where a big chunk of people are, is they believe in the idea of prayer, but it really hasn't become a practice in their life. It's not really, they're busy people. They got things to do, right? And then the third group of people are people who know prayer works and see the impact in their life, and they pray. And they pray for themselves, they pray for their family. They pray because they see the impact of prayer. And so for the next 5 weeks, I'm going to invite you to pray more. If you pray 5 minutes a day, we're going to double it. If you pray 10 minutes a day, we're going to double it. If you're praying 2 hours, you're good, right? Right? But I'm going to invite you to really increase the amount of time you spend in prayer. Because prayer is amazing, it's transformative, but you have to do it before it gets to be powerful in your life. And so I'm going to share with you this month 5 prayers, and each one of them is powerful, each one of them is transformative, each one of these, I believe, can just rock your world. But for them to be really meaningful, we actually have to do it, because there's 2 things for prayer. First thing is, prayer, when we really pray, it leads us into a greater experience of God. We have an experience of God. If we're praying and we're just saying words that we learned when we were 5, but we're not really having an experience of God, I'm going to invite you to really upgrade your prayer life. That it's not just words that we parrot. It's not just words that we're blah, 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 blah. If that's what prayer means to you, we're going to go deeper in this next 5 weeks. We're going to, because prayer ideally is something that we do daily on a regular basis that fills up our heart, fills up our soul. It leads us into a greater experience of God. So often the other question that people give me is, how do I know when I need to spend more time in prayer? And I usually use the analogy, how many of you have a warning light on the dashboard of your car? Right? And the warning light on the dashboard of your car is because we're all busy people and sometimes you just forget to change your oil, that sometimes we go a little far and then the little warning light comes on and says, pay attention to me, pay attention to me, pay attention to me. And I want you to know what the warning signs are that you're not spending enough time in prayer. So how do you know when you're not spending enough time in prayer? If you feel burned out, you are not spending enough time in prayer, right? Because the whole concept of being burned out is the underlying belief that you're in charge of your life. If you believe that you're in charge of your life, then you better be busy, 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 because you don't have anything to fall back on. So when we believe that we're the center of our own universe, we best be busy about it. And then the tendency is to get burned out. So if you're burned out, you're not spending enough time in prayer. If you're anxious about anything in your life, you are not spending enough time in prayer. If you're moving from one anxious moment to the next, you are not spending enough time in prayer because you are still operating out of a belief that your ego is in charge. And as we move into prayer, true prayer, and we spend time in prayer, we begin to actually feel that there's a power greater than ourselves that is in charge of our life. Now, the third one is, I know that no one in this room would ever do this, but if you're quick to anger, you know what I mean by quick to anger? Like if you're locked and loaded, ready for somebody to tick you off, you are not spending enough time in prayer, right? If you feel empty, if you're afraid, overwhelmed, disconnected, sad, depressed, you are not spending enough time in prayer. Because what happens for us when we don't spend enough time in prayer is that our soul just feels depleted. We feel empty. We feel wrung out. And what happens when we move into prayer is that we actually get our cup filled. We're filled to overflowing. That we actually allow the infinite to fill us up from the inside. And so over and over again, your mental health depends on prayer. It does. Because the more you feel that presence and that power, not out there, but in here, the more you feel the presence of God within you, it fills you up. It transforms your life. It allows us to move forward. See, in unity, we believe that there's an incredible transformation that happens, that when we move from negative thinking to positive thinking. But we can't really depend on just our own intellect or our own understanding, our own mind, our own thoughts to live a full, balanced life. We actually need that presence of spirit. We need that activity of spirit moving through us. Because one of the things I teach over and over again, right, is that our soul only does one of two things. It either expands or it contracts, right? And when we're in fear, when we're angry, upset, when we're in disbelief, our soul is literally contracting. But when we're in love, when we're in prayer, when we're in experience of goodness or happiness, our soul then expands, and we can literally hold more spiritual energy. All right, so you ready? So every week, I'm going to give you a prayer. And I think the longest prayer is 6 words, right? So this is not something that you're going to need to memorize. It's not a paragraph. You're not going to get a gold star for being able to recite this prayer. This prayer is something so simple, but in its simplicity, it's deceptive, okay? So the prayer for this week, and I want you to spend a whole week on this prayer, because if you don't pray it, you don't know how powerful it is. But if you actually engage it and use it and live it, you actually experience how powerful it is. So this week's prayer is, let there be light. 4 words, right? Let's say it with me. Let there be light. One more time. Let there be light. Now, did everybody memorize that prayer already? Do you all have it down? Have you internalized it, right? Let there be light. It is a simple prayer, but it is the first words that we read in the gospel. It's the first word. It's what God spoke to create creation. It's what allows the unformed to become the formed. It's what allows us to claim the infinite Spirit of God and manifest it in every area of our life. Let there be light. Together, let there be light. How many of you remember or ever saw the episode in Oprah where she gave everybody a car? Right? Where she gave everybody a car. And if you remember that episode, she says, and you win a car, and you win a car, and you win a car. Right? And she's like ecstatic by just giving everybody these cars. She's so happy. You win a car, and you win a car. Well, I'm going to invite you to see that today I'm giving you a magic wand. And the magic wand I'm giving you today is a wand that allows you to look at any area of your life and say with me, let there be light. Let there be light. let there be light. That you actually have the power to look at any area of your life and call forth greater light. You have the ability to bless, to transform, to make things new, higher, better. And so over and over again, I want to come back to this original verse in Genesis 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved over the face of the waters. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning the first day. So when everything was empty and void, was God still present? Right. Did we experience God when everything was empty and void? No. What I want you to see is God is infinite potential, His infinite spirit, infinite presence everywhere in the universe. But it's only the God that we experience is the God that is actually manifest as light. And so over and over again, that every time you claim, let there be light, you're actually calling forth an experience of God. That every time you say those words, let there be light, your soul is acknowledging the ability to recognize God in any situation. In our culture, we have this image that darkness is scary, or darkness is bad, or darkness, but it's the same God. It's just that God is unformed, it's unshaped, it's not present. But every time we call forth a light, we are calling forth a greater experience of the divine. Let's say it together. Let there be light. One more time. Let there be light. So I want you to look at any area in your life where you know that you have not completely mastered it. It could be your love life, it could be relationships, it could be your health, it could be your finances, it could be your work, it could be what's going on in the country today. And I want you to see that God is fully present already, infinitely present in that area. Like if you're working on a health issue, and sometimes we feel like, oh, my body, cooperate here, please. Right? Or we think my finances, right? If I could just scrape a little money together, I'd be okay. Or my work, and we go into our story, we go into our drama. And what I want you to see is that God is fully, infinitely present in each and every aspect of your life, but you may not be experiencing it fully. You may not see the infinite goodness that's available to each and every one of us. And when we have the courage to call forth the light, we actually call it forth into being. We actually bring it into form. Together, let there be light. And I want you to walk around your life this week, and over again, I want you to say, let there be light. Let there be light in my finances. Let there be light in my health. Let there be light in my work. Let there be light with my family. Let there be light in my home. Let there be light in my church. Let there be light in my country. We actually want to call forth as much light as we can stand. That over and over and over again, God is fully present. Now, do you ever get cranky? No, right? No, we never get cranky. If you knew that God was infinitely present, surrounding you, enfolding you in an infinite experience of life, how could we ever get cranky? Right? We only get cranky is because we believe that we're separate. We're separate from God. We're separate from the good we desire. We're separate. And what light does, every time you call forth the light, it actually illumines all the good, all the God that is all around you. How many of you believe that you're on a spiritual path? If you're on a spiritual path, is it better to hike with the light or to walk in darkness? Now, I know they have the little miner lights on now, and so you can wear your little miner's light, and you can hike at 4 in the morning or whatever. Phoenix, we kind of have to if we're going to hike, because it's, right? But what I want you to see is that whatever light we add to our spiritual path, is actually bringing God right there. We actually need the light. Now, who shouldn't pray this prayer? Okay, because it looks like everybody should be praying this prayer, right? Who shouldn't say, let there be light? Well, if you're being a little sketchy with life, if you're not being honest with people that are important to you, if you're fudging on your taxes, like, it's not a good idea to call forth more light because everything's going to be revealed, right? So if you're being sketchy with life, it's not a good idea to claim more light because everything is going to come to the light. But if you're in a lawsuit with somebody, if there's a problem in your life, if there's a challenge in your life, and you want everything to be revealed, then you, by goodness gracious, yes, you ought to be saying this over and over and over again together. Let there be light. And we should be claiming that. And not only claiming it for ourselves, but we should be claiming it for our families and our community, our church, our nation. We should be everywhere you look. You have the power to claim the light of God. And it will literally manifest because you've spoken the word. That's what God taught us. That you speak the word, let there be light, and the light actually appears because you speak into it. And as you claim the light, your path is revealed. For healing, for prosperity, for greater work, whatever the desire is, as you claim the light appears and shows you the way. That over and over again, we can walk in confusion, we can walk in darkness, we can walk in fear, we can walk in disbelief, or we can claim the light. And every time we claim the light appears. Like God is not withholding anything from you. Now, if you don't claim the light, like because you have free will, you have a right to walk in as much darkness as you want to walk in. If you like stubbing your toe, God bless you. You know, Band-Aids are made for all of us, right? You can wear, but if you want to walk in the light, if you want to be wildly and fully blessed, then over and over again, claim the light. Over and over again, claim the light of God. Now, how many of you have ever gone through a painful experience? How many of you have ever gone through a painful experience and been in resistance to that painful experience? Right? How many of us have ever gone through a painful experience, been in resistance to that painful experience, and tried to push it down into our soul so we didn't have to feel it? Anybody done that? And then and it kind of works for a while because your soul is so vast and so wonderful, you can push a lot of pain down before it starts bubbling up. And one of the things I need you to know is that as you begin to claim the light more and more in your life, all those painful experiences are going to start slowly bubbling up. And it's like, well, if somebody would have told me that, I never would have done it. But the whole desire of this process, as you begin to claim, let there be light, and the old pain begins to bubble up, your only job is to give it back to God. Your only job is to let it go. How many of you can hold a hot pan for more than a minute? Now, your body is so smart that the moment your body senses a hot, painful experience, your body will drop it. Your emotional body is not that smart. Right? Your emotional body can hold on to pain for years and years and years and just keep cramming it down in your soul and pretending like there's plenty of room. And until the pain just starts overwhelming us, and then we realize, oh, I'm not doing so well. As you begin to affirm, let there be light, those experiences of the past will gently start bubbling up so that you can release them, so that you can let them go. And over again, as you release them and let them go, what we find within our soul is that it was never meant to be a toxic waste dump. It was never meant to hold all that pain. That as we give the pain to God, it's released and comes back to us as grace. So every time we say, let there be light, it happens within us as well. Not just in our life around us, but it also happens within us. Together, let there be light. I want you to hear what Apostle Paul said. It's one of my favorite lines. It's in 1 Corinthians 13, the whole chapter on love. But there's these two verses right in the middle of this chapter on love that I think are just so profound. 1 Corinthians 13. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. But when I became a man, I gave up childish ways. For now I see in the mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall understand fully, even as I have been fully understood. Here's how I understand that. When we're in our childish self, our pain, our fears, our brokenness, we just keep pushing it down into our soul. And it really begins to impact how we see ourselves. Because then we begin to see ourselves as broken, or we see ourselves as not right, or something's wrong with us. And it actually impacts the way we see ourselves. But as we go through this transformation, we actually set the pain of the past free. And not only do we set the pain free, but we set ourselves free in the process. We actually release the pain of the past. And then what happens is, as the pain is now gone, we see ourselves not in the mirror dimly, but we see ourselves the way God sees us. When we look in the mirror and we see ourselves, we actually see the face of God as our face. That we actually allow the light to change the way we see ourselves. And we no longer see ourselves as broken, but we see ourselves as holy, as sacred, as divine. That today, the light will transform you. It will. It will transform you at the deepest level. But in reality, what it's doing is revealing the way that you were created from the very beginning. So it can transform you. It can transform any area of your life by calling forth the infinite potential that is right there. It can bless and heal and acknowledge and help any other person in your life. That the more that we call forth the light, the more that we're accelerating our own spiritual path and adding light to our own spiritual path. That for the next 7 days, I'm encouraging you to have one prayer. Let there be light. Together, let there be light. One more time. Let there be light. One more time like we mean it. Let there be light. Stick it into prayer right now. And I want you to call forth the light in every area of your life. I want you to see the activity of God moving in and through you, healing you at depth, healing all the pain of the past, releasing it, setting you free. And so that when you look in the mirror, you see the very face of God looking back at you. That you look in the mirror and you see the truth of who you are. That you are whole and complete and lacking in nothing. That you are truly created in the image and likeness of God. That today we call forth the light to be the greatest expression of God that we can be, to be the truth of who we are. So in the name and through the power of the living Christ, we give thanks. And so it is. Amen.